Hello, and welcome to the podcast where friends discuss environmental policies from around the planet. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to an extra policy episode of the Planet Policy Pals. I am Ala, and I'm here with my co-host and my bestie, Ajwa girl. What's good?
Hey, not much, except for the fact that you admitted on the recording saying that I'm your bestie. Okay, thanks, Ala. Now my day is even better. Keep going.
Wonderful. I take it back. Anyway, we are on a little sort of break, but not really a break, because we're still bringing you these extra policies, and these ones are they're a good length. I think we will be back in 3 weeks, but we'll talk about it at the end. One thing I want to say before we get started is, guys, we're on Good Pods, and it's really hard on this podcast apps to find climate sections because most of them don't have them. But if you just search our podcast, or if you search science podcast, we should pop up, hopefully. So look for us on Good Pods, listen, share us, and please review us. We really need the ratings, guys. You guys are listening, which we appreciate, but if you could rate us on these apps, it'd get other people to listen, you know what I mean? So this week we're going to be talking about the IPCC a little bit. We did talk about them a little bit on episode 4. Go ahead and check out that episode. And so this week we just want to cover a little bit, get into this report they just released. So right now they're in their 6th assessment cycle. There have been 5 other assessment reports. And the IPCC, of course, is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. It's a UN organization. And they have 3 working groups, and each one has a different responsibility. And when they're done, they put everything into a big assessment report. They also do special reports like that 1.5 degrees Celsius climate report that we've talked about in previous episodes. So this time we want to cover that one. The working group 1 just released their first reports. They published their summary for policymakers, and then of course they had the experts, and it was reviewed. They had their line by line marathon plenary sessions.
What are those? What?
You know how after they do this, it was a whole process, but after they do it, they have experts and a panel review line by line each thing, which is insane because it's pretty freaking long. And then they have the government member states review as well before they can approve it. And so that's when they finally are all right, we're good to go. So they released that first working group, but they're still working. I guess they're going to edit it a little bit more. So that's what we're focusing on. The first working group is called the Physical Science Group. And so the report is titled The Climate Change 2021 Physical Science Basis. And they finalized it on the 6th of August this year during the 54th session of the IPCC. So it's a brief discussion, so we're just going to get into what they do a little bit. Full disclosure, guys, the full report is 4,000 pages, and this is just one working group. So, we did not read 4,000 pages. We have shit to do. But we did.
And what the funny thing is, for those 4,000 pages, the policy report was not even a page and a half.
Yeah, the summary for policymakers is a page and a half. But of course, all those things linked to the report comes with suggestions and more science and things like that. And just keep in mind, the IPCC, they don't necessarily do this themselves. They just collate stuff from scientists. It's a lot of contribution that goes into this. So let's get into the point of this report a little bit. And we're going to talk about the 6 points covered in the summary for policymakers, and just a little bit about what we took away from the actual report in the parts that we did bother to read. Okay. One big thing at this point, I think we all know that there is no point denying that human influence has warmed the atmosphere, ocean, and land. We've seen the widespread and rapid changes, guys. We all see it, ranging from where water is in solid form to sea ice, lake ice, river ice, all the water. It is all melting. And then we talk about the biosphere. Of course, we see that the ecosystems with the root systems of trees to ocean trenches and rainforests, they're suffering too. They also made a very good point where they said human-induced climate change is already affecting many weather and climate extremes in every region across the globe. Another thing that we all see. Honestly, this report is just telling you, you see all this stuff happening around you? Yeah, it's real. And there's evidence of observed changes in extremes such as heat waves, heavy precipitation, droughts, tropical cyclones, and very important, this is all caused by human beings. It's us, you guys.
Surprise, surprise.
Right? Shocker. According to the European Space Agency, fire affects an estimated 4 million square kilometers, that's 1.5 million square miles, of Earth's land each year. To put that in context, that is about half the size of the United States, larger than India, or roughly 4 times the size of Nigeria.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we know like these things, these extremes are happening, you know what I mean? They also pointed out that improved knowledge of climate processes, paleoclimate evidence, and the response of the climate system to increasing radiative force will probably give a best estimate of equilibrium for climate sensitivity of 3 degrees Celsius, which is a narrower range than what we had in the 5th assessment report. So, yeah. That part is not good. It's kind of like saying that our wiggle room is getting smaller and smaller. So looking to the future, it's going to keep affecting rainfall patterns. We can expect, especially in high latitudes, that precipitation is probably going to increase. And with continued global warming, it's going to intensify the global water cycle. Coastal areas will continue to see larger and larger sea level rise through the rest of the 21st century. So we're going to get more flooding, even in low-lying areas. Extreme sea level events that used to be like 1 in 100-year things are going to become more common. I think we're already seeing that too. Like Miami is a perfect example of that. And if we keep the CO2 increasing, the ocean and land carbon sinks are projected to be less effective at slowing the accumulation of CO2 in the atmosphere. Because what happens with the excess CO2 is we have these sinks like the ocean and they trap the CO2, at least they can keep them. And of course, tree systems. But as we influence them more and more, CO2 will be released and there's just less sink to trap future ones. The one big thing that also we're gonna be seeing possibly in the future is that many of the changes due to past and future greenhouse gas emissions are now irreversible for centuries to millennia, especially in the ocean, ice sheets, and global sea level. So a lot of what we've done at these water levels, guys, there's no going back already. This does not mean that we cannot slow or reduce our contributions to climate change. It just means that in some instances regarding these water areas, there's not much you can do to take it back to how it used to be. And we're also going to see, like in some cities, like we said, you should expect amplified heat waves. We don't have a lot of positive news from this report, I'm sorry to say. All right, so now Audra is going to talk a little bit more about the rest of the report and her takeaways.
So they also talked about risk assessment and what regional adaptation can actually do to help this situation. So they said natural drivers and internal variability will obviously modulate the human-caused changes, especially at regional scales in the near term, and it will have little effect on the overall global warming. Now, these modulations are really important to consider when you're planning the full range of possible changes. And currently, we do have enough data that is available for climate impact assessments on a regional level, where the effect is mostly noticed. But with further global warming, every region is obviously projected to increasingly experience concurrent and multiple changes in climatic impact drivers. So there's going to be changes in several drivers that will be more widespread at 2 degrees Celsius than they would be at 1.5 degrees Celsius global warming, and then they'll be even more widespread as the temperature goes even further up. Although the possibility of this is low, but there could be ice sheet collapse or abrupt ocean circulation changes, some extreme events that could actually warm up the planet much faster than previously thought of.
Okay, that's awful.
There's still that risk that needs to be counted in when you're talking about, how do we mitigate the current levels. When they talk about how to limit future climate change, now there's like a physical science perspective, right? Like we have to limit the human-induced global warming. That requires obviously the carbon dioxide emissions that need to at least reach net zero CO2 emissions. And we need strong reductions in other greenhouse gas emissions as well. Also, there needs to be really strong and rapid and sustained reduction in methane emissions that would actually limit the warming effect resulting from declining aerosol pollutions and would improve air quality. So guys, like, stop eating that beef.
Okay, move on.
It's true. That is really the biggest contributing factor to methane. We know that, right?
It's true.
Okay, moving on. So right now we're in a situation where we do have low emissions, and we can really fix it because once we reach these high emissions, even activities that don't have that many emissions for now, those are obviously going to change over time. They're going to become high emission activities. And within 20 years, we would see a global surface temperature change. And these trends would just worsen over longer periods of time and would drive a lot of other disasters. So really right now is the time to really take some action. So I guess this report really was, I think this was the first assessment report that everybody took very seriously because the warnings are way more threatening this time. And that's why, like we saw at COP26, everybody came together and just like to talk about, we need to stop this. Right now is the time. Like Allah said, that window is getting smaller and smaller if we don't act soon. So
yeah,
we need to act.
Honestly, very true, Ajwa. We've discussed a lot of things that we got from the report. Obviously, not everything. We kept this short. What was your biggest takeaway from the report?
I think this was like the first time that the authors of the Working Group 1 have used the word unequivocally to say that human-induced climate change impacts due to the emissions of greenhouse gases that are already happening around the world are really the factor. Like, this is a very significant warning which has been characterized as a red alert to global leaders, and they really need to take this issue much more seriously than they have in the past.
Yeah.
Like, the climate conversation has moved to net zero as a minimum. Like, the report's findings indicate that achieving climate goals will, at a minimum, require broad commitment to net zero carbon dioxide emissions. So right now, like, it really pushed people to, we need to make a change.
Yeah, 100%. And speaking of net zero, a lot of times companies will purchase offsets as a means to solve their carbon accounting problems, and it's becoming a more popular trend. However, this report only considers carbon removal in the context of actual removal of emissions from the atmosphere, not just doing activities you think offset your emissions. And so companies need to be aware that there's a wide variability in what is mainstream acceptance and what is, scientifically accepted. In particular, the two offset issues where we're going to be looking at is those that you get when you avoid emissions. So things like renewable energy projects that displace coal-fired power plants or changing behavior in your company. And then removal offsets like reforestation, which you calculate by providing immediate reduction values. As far as sequestration. So we're going to have to change what we consider offsets in the near future. But that was my big takeaway from this situation.
Yeah, like, you can't fly on your private jet and just like pay a poor country and buy their emissions.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would conclude our extra policy episode. An organization that we would tell you to check out is obviously the IPCC website. You can stay updated on what they're doing, how they do it, although we talked about that in one of our first few episodes where we talked about the IPCC, how they work in detail, so you know what we mean by the working group and the assessment reports.
Episode number 4, guys.
Episode number 4, there we go. Allah has a better memory than I do. If you've read any parts of this report, please let us know. Let us know what your takeaways are, and if we missed out any important part that you think we should have covered in this episode, also let us know about that. Maybe we can fill it in our social media. Thank you so much for joining us for this Planet Policy Pals extra policy discussion. We are still in series 3, but on a mini break, even though we will be putting out extra policy episodes each week. So our next episode will be another short extra policy, but we're sticking with the storytime theme. Get ready to hear about the landmark case that went on for years in the Niger Delta region of Nigeria against a giant oil company next week.
I cannot wait, because this one means a lot to me, guys.
Yeah, it's literally home for her. So join us as Allah tells us very passionately about people that fucked up Nigeria's Niger Delta region.
Yep.
But in the meantime, follow us on Twitter at Planet Policy Pal, Instagram at Planet Policy Pals, and like our Facebook page. We are still on a social media break, but if you message or leave a comment, we will respond. Join us again next time, and until then,
Keep learning, pals.